Hi, everybody. Well, we love talking about Gen Z, not going to uni, and particularly about what makes them tick. And of course, social media is a natural part of that conversation when it comes to understanding Gen Z. So what we're doing today is we're going to be talking about TikTok and how people use TikTok and leaving you with some tips that you can do as an employer to help you engage with Gen Z in the right way. I'm joined with Connor today. How are
Hello.
you doing?
Yes, very well. Very well. Ready to talk social.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, look, so it's something we're kind of involved in day in, day out, isn't it? So I think it's really nice just to spend a bit of time out to share that with people who are in the business of attracting and retaining Gen Z talent. So we've got to start off with TikTok, haven't we?
It's for sure.
I mean, in the UK, over 18, these are stats from ByteDance, who own TikTok. Users aged over 18 and above, there are nearly 23 million users on TikTok, which is a significant proportion of the population.
So what's actually really interesting about that number is that the children of Britain, according to the Daily Telegraph, who released an article earlier this year in Jan 2024, were saying that around 127 minutes of a child's time a day is actually spent on TikTok, more than any country. So actually, you consider the size of America, etc. Users in Britain are actually spending way more time on TikTok in that platform, and it doubled in the last 4 years. So it just shows you the pull of that platform and how it's a platform that ultimately they want you to be in all the time, don't they?
100%, and it's really, it's really interesting to see that actually, TikTok is typically seen, like, I suppose, mainstream wise, certainly maybe from older generations, seen as being, it's a place for dances, for music, and yes, it is absolutely, but it is a lot more than that. And actually, it's really interesting to see actually that there's a new term that's been created called, I'm not going to get this quite right, finfluencers, so financial advisors who are influencers. And actually TikTok is being, it's like the second most popular place for under 25-year-olds to get financial advice. Now, luckily that's just after parents and family, which is good, but it just goes to show actually how significant TikTok is, not just as a place of entertainment but also a place of learning. And when it comes to the kind of things that those users are doing, those teens are doing on TikTok, obviously we do have music, and typically you will see that anything that gets to the top of the streaming charts is probably doing something very well on TikTok, and it's blown up on TikTok.
You've seen that with songs that were released 20 years ago suddenly flying in the charts 20 years later, and that's purely through the fact that song has become a trending sound. It's mental when you think about it, that song that's almost not dead and buried but put on the shelf and covered in dust can be taken off that shelf, and all of a sudden that artist is in the charts and in the top 10 20 years later. It's just absolutely mind-boggling when you think about it.
It's very true. I mean, I remember the Stranger Things season, when that came out, and you had the Kate Bush song, and everyone was going, "This person's brilliant, it's great." And she was in the 80s. She absolutely went skyrocketed up the charts. What other kind of things are people doing on TikTok?
Well, I think a big one is it's being used as almost a news outlet, and something where young people and I'd say all users of TikTok really are almost keeping their hands on the pulse. I think I always compare it a little bit to before Twitter was X, quite a few years ago, when actually, and I think there's still an element of this with X, that people do get their news from there. But I think, especially amongst Gen Z, and I think the data we've spoken about shows that they're using it more, and as such, they're keeping their hands on the pulse with news and world events much more. Caveat though is that might be via mainstream media channels on TikTok. That might also be point of views of people in places where there's news articles happening. For example, we're talking in April 2024. There's been the storms in Dubai.
Yeah.
So actually, something I saw a lot was point of views of people in Dubai and showing what it was actually like. So that's me getting my news on what's going on in Dubai, but actually via point of view news people in a weird way. So the way young people are getting news isn't just through your BBC News or your Sky News and Newsbeat and things like this. It's actually via me and you. It's via everyday people in some ways.
Yeah, 100%. I think actually that taps into the thing about, and there's we've talked about it a lot. You know, when we talk about TikTok, is when you got senior people in Google saying how significant TikTok is for search, then it's, you know, there's got to be some truth in it for sure. And a senior vice president at Google saying, in our study, something like almost 40% of young people, when they're looking for a place for lunch, they don't go to Google Maps or Google Search. They go to TikTok. They also mentioned Instagram as well. Right. But TikTok are building out their kind of search functionality, and there's even like a search widget that you can get on your phone. You know, so I think definitely, you know, TikTok is a place for many things, isn't it? Even things like, you know, food planning. I know, Conor, you love your food. I love cooking, and you know, TikTok is a place to find recipes, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of foodies on there, and a lot of, you know, chefs, both, you know, Michelin star popular chefs, but also, you know, there's one guy that comes to mind, a guy called Ollie Eats, who's built a page. You know, he's not, I don't think he's a chef by trade, but you know, he's built a huge following just by making food he likes and talking about it and sharing recipes. And it's same with fitness. People will get, and I've done this actually. I was big in the gym, and now I'm also taking up running, and I've found a lot of running advice and information just via TikTok, by like watching different people talking about running styles and, you know, what views are best for what type of running and things like this. That I didn't Google it. I actually just watched a couple of TikTok videos and went, okay, cool. I understand now, you know, you should run like this and you should do this and you should do that. So yeah, you've got it for cooking, fitness, finance, like you mentioned, places to stay, you know, places to, like you said, places to eat, all these variable things that typically you might search on a map, on Google Maps, on Apple Maps, etc., or just via a Google search. Actually, you TikTok it because you get to see some real life content, some real life people, and it goes back to this sort of POV, this point of view that oh, that looks nice, I'm gonna go there.
And it's very much connected to not just brands obviously creating content, but it's massively, and certainly more so, about influencers, content creators actually creating this content, building up a following themselves. So, and that's something that is very trusted, as opposed to, say, the more traditional media channels, you know, media sources that are out there. Although, of course, you know, you only have to look at, say, the BBC or Sky, and et cetera, who are actually, you know, heavily involved in TikTok, because they know that it's a place where people are consuming content. So if we kind of hone it down onto and focus it down onto what employers should be doing, let's come up with a few tips and tricks that people can think about when it comes to going, right, let's get involved in TikTok a bit more and start understanding it a bit more.
Absolutely. Well, I think that the main one is you've got to kind of practice what you preach, and you've got to get on the platform and look around. I think it's there's a bit of an age-old thing. There's a bit of a trend at the moment I keep hearing from people where they're like, oh, I'm over the age of blah, blah, I'm not downloading TikTok.
Yeah.
They're early careers recruiters trying to engage young people. So my argument to them, to go back to them, is, well, actually, that's where your target audience is. So why, you don't need to have an account and scroll on there for days, but even if you create an account to scroll on there for a day and have a look around, at least then you'll understand the ecosystem, you'll understand how it works. And that's really important if you're a recruitment marketing professional, or not, even if you haven't got the word marketing in your job title and you're just a HR professional looking after careers. Understand what your audience is engaging with and looking at. And you know, this whole kind of argument of, oh, I'm over the age of blah blah, I shouldn't have a TikTok account. we're all trying to do the same thing here. We're all trying to engage the same audience. So why not spend a bit of time doing a bit of research?
Absolutely. And I think also organizations have a great benefit of in a great position to actually have people in their organization that use TikTok day in, day out. So definitely get them together and get their thoughts, even individually, to start with, saying, how do you use TikTok? And I think you can run little sessions as well that getting people to share that. Not only are you getting great insights for them, that's a lovely piece of reverse mentoring, by the way. But also, they're being heard, and they're actually people who could be involved in actually, creating content for TikTok for the organization as well. So I think that's all kind of a win-win situation.
Absolutely.
I love a bit of BTS, don't we? A bit of behind the scenes.
We do. Everyone, I think that's one of the most popular things, because we like to feel a bit fly on the wall. We're in a reality TV generation in many ways, with the popularity of some of those series. But I think people almost trust some of the behind the scenes content more on platforms like TikTok than reality TV, or I say they do, because it's way more authentic and often shows warts and all. And that's what people like to see. They like to see behind the net curtains of suburbia, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, actually, if you think things like, if you look at search for things like careers advice on TikTok, there are millions and millions of video views on content connected to that. So I think it's definitely worth searching for that kind of stuff as well. And I think these are then, when you do that, you can then think about, well, what are the things that we know as an organization, or individuals in the organization? What do they know that can help people on TikTok and help feed that desire to learn and get advice about what they should be doing as their first step in their career? And literally, you've got your specialists at your fingertips in terms of the people in your organization. So when you go and talking to people who use TikTok, then actually they could also be people that can actually contribute to helping people learn and also helping people be entertained. But particularly, I think around learning, I think that's really, really, really important to do.
Yeah, and I think something else that every company, and some companies may not have anything that they can kind of get tweaked up and promote on TikTok, but if you run a podcast, if you've done live events, if you've got footage of an event you've done, if you've got core sort of brand videos, if you've got core day in the life videos or a core employer brand video, get it chopped up, get it chopped up into TikTok style and push it out there, because at the end of the day, I don't think there's any harm in that. And on top of that, you can obviously look at some of that UGC content, that user-generated content, with those maybe apprentices, graduates, professionals within the organisation, but also make use of stuff you maybe have already done and get full benefit there.
Yeah, definitely. And no doubt there are people who are, in organisations creating TikTok content for TikTok. So to leverage them makes sense. And, you end up having people to feel even more empowered by their employer by being asked to use their knowledge of a platform and really give people that feeling of what it's like to be an organization, but also the things that they can learn by join the right organization. I think you've got something pretty special there.
Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, we could definitely talk much longer about TikTok, but I think that's, I think we're just keen that people can have enough to get started and just start to immerse them in the world of TikTok a bit more. Maybe go back to what they've already done and seeing what they can do. But I think it's definitely such an exciting platform to get involved in.
Absolutely.